Number 10. Jacob wrestles. This story starts a few years after Jacob convinces his twin brother Esau to trade his birthright blessing for a bowl of stew.
Esau is the ultimate example of why delayed gratification is a thing.
Esau gets angry at the trade and vows to kill Jacob, who flees to Haran before God tells him to return to his homeland of Canaan. The concept terrifies Jacob, so he sends gifts ahead to placate his brother. When he reaches the river Jabbok, Jacob gets cold feet and sends his family ahead, but he stays behind and sets up camp. At this point, out of absolutely nowhere, a man jumps Jacob and starts to wrestle him for literally the whole night. Eventually, the man realizes he's not winning the fight, so he cheats a little and touches Jacob's hip, magically dislocating it. Then the man tells Jacob to let go, but the magic finger thing has tipped Jacob off that this might not be your average wrestling stranger. He says he will only let go if the man blesses him, which he does. The man admits that he is, in fact, God, and renames Jacob Israel.
This guy needs to read up on the scripture more. Jacob wasn't wrestling God. Jacob was actually wrestling an angel of God. Some debate whether it was the actual guardian angel of Esau. That's why he couldn't be seen. But otherwise, it wasn't God. It was an angel. Anybody who's seen God in his form would die, by the way.
Number 9. Jesus and the fig tree. Barring a few examples like the merchants in the temple, Jesus is typically regarded as a very calm, forgiving guy. But of the rare examples where Jesus did lose his cool, surely the most bizarre took place just after the story of the temple. It begins as Jesus is returning to Jerusalem from Bethany, when he starts to feel a bit hungry. He spots a fig tree by the road and walks over to it, but when he searches the tree, he can only see leaves and not a single fig. Despite the fact that this is just the tree functioning the way his dad designed it to function, this doesn't go over particularly well with Jesus. In perhaps the earliest documented example of someone feeling hangry, Jesus then curses the tree. He says to it, "May you never bear fruit again," and the tree just instantly withers. His disciples ask how it happened, and then the moral of the story after that is effectively, you think that's cool, that's nothing. He then tells them if he wanted to, he could tell a mountain to throw itself in the sea, and it would, flexing for no reason.
Look, it's not complicated. The fig tree is a metaphor for the Pharisees and Sadducees who bear no good fruit. Because the fig tree had no good fruit, neither does the Pharisees and Sadducees. They're neither good, so they don't bear fruit, just like the fig tree. You know, bad tree, bad, people. The tree is representative of just bad people. And yeah, by the way, Jesus wasn't flexing that he could actually move mountains, even though he could. He was flexing that the people, like his disciples, could actually move mountains with a little bit of faith. He wasn't flexing that he did, if you actually read the text, my friend.
Number 8. Ehud. Judges chapter 3 was a roller coaster for the Israelites, who start off verse 12 being judged by God for their immorality. To punish them, he sends Eglon, king of Moab, to seize power of Israel and oppress them for 18 years. Eventually, the Israelites appealed to God's softer side, and he decided to grant them some respite. This took the form of Ehud, an assassin sent by God to rid the Israelites of Eglon, who, remember, God literally put there himself. Ehud goes to see Eglon, who the Bible keeps specifying is very fat, with a tribute from the Israelites. Then, after he's given the tribute, he tells Eglon that he has a secret message for him. The woefully trusting and very fat Eglon then sends all of his attendants out, and the message comes in the form of Ehud stabbing him in his belly, which, remember, is very fat. So fat that it envelops the whole sword, which Ehud has to leave there. Then Eglon's servants don't even find him in time to save him. Why? Because they assume he's locked the door to do a poo and don't want to interrupt.
I like how you kind of glossed over the fact that Ehud was left-handed, and that's why nobody found a weapon on him, because nobody checked the right side of his body. Also, you glossed over the fact that so what, God sent this king. Well, he didn't send the king. He allowed the king to take over the Israelites. He didn't really send him. But yeah, Ehud later on became a great man and one of the few left-handers that we had to look up to. Yeah.
Number 7. Rules for priests. Some parts of the Bible exhibit a weirdly specific obsession with what men of faith have hidden in their loincloths. Take Deuteronomy chapter 23 for instance, which warns that he that is wounded in the stones, or hath his privy member cut off, shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord. As if they haven't gone through enough already.
This may seem strange until you realize that in many ancient religions and in many places of the world, eunuchs were seen as high regard. Hell, in ancient Rome, many people who were eunuchs had high places in their pagan religion. So that's why, that strange law was there to make sure that they don't have, a better chance or just biased options coming across. Because your holy men are supposed to be like celibate. And if you don't, have a dick, it's much more easier to be celibate,
The weirdly specific topic crops up again in Leviticus chapter 21. God, knowing how much Moses loves lists, gives him a series of rules to pass on to the priests regarding their conduct and who's allowed to join their ranks. This includes common caveats, like not to profane God's name, for example, and that if a priest's daughter disgraces her father, she must be burned in the fire. God also tells Moses that no one who has a defect may come near to offer the food of his God. I know you're wondering, but don't worry, because God defined what he meant by that. It includes the blind, lame, disfigured, crippled, hunchbacked dwarves, those with eye defects, running sores, and of course, damaged testicles.
Again, strange law until you get the context of the times. A lot of people with disabilities were seen as pretty much freaks and weirdos, kind of like the freak shows we had in like the 18th century and shit like that. And they were seen as kind of magical, so it's kind of exploitation. And about that whole priest thing, I need to read that up. But I guess it's because, you're going to get an earthly fire. You're going to get your afterlife is going to be a fire. So maybe your earthly life should be fire too. I don't know.
Number 6. Siege of Jerusalem symbolized. The book of Ezekiel focuses on God explaining to him why he plans to destroy Jerusalem and how Ezekiel is going to be the one to tell them. But he can't just send them a letter or anything, that would be too straightforward.
Look, I'm just gonna save y'all some time. God has Ezekiel do a lot of weird shit, like lay on his back and eat pretty much eat like meat that's cooked over poop. Or that like shit is like feeding the fire, like, a lot of weird stuff. I kind of wish he looked up the text on Hosea and how God pretty much cucked this guy into marrying a whore, and the whore representing Israel. I think that's a much better story. Ezekiel is too damn big. Like, it's weirder than Revelations. But yeah, hey, God has him do a lot of weird stuff and have a lot of symbolic meaning, yada, yada, yada.
It's 15. After finding out that his new wife has betrayed him to her people, the Philistines, Samson celebrates his wedding by killing 30 of them. This pretty understandably gives the woman's father the impression that Samson has gone cold on his new blushing bride, so he wastes no time in offering her to another man. But Samson returns from his spree looking for his wife, so her father covers up by trying to offer Samson her more attractive sister.
Again, I'm gonna have to stop it right here. Who doesn't know the story of Samson and Delilah, how he had to grow hair for God and then, the bitch cut it off. Everybody knows that story. I mean, it was part of like a History Channel, like little mini series that was watched by like 40 million people. And they had their own movie, Samson and Delilah. And, Plain White Tees had a song called Hey There Delilah. Like, who doesn't know this story? Next.
Elisha is jeered. In the second book of Kings, the prophet Elisha has just healed the water in Jericho through the Lord, when he decided to head to Bethel. On the journey though, he lost considerable good person points with the help of the big guy himself. It all started when he was walking down the road and caught the attention of some local children. The boys came out behind him and, being the ruffians that they were, started to throw insults at him and his considerably receded hairline.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it right here and say that, yes, the Bible used the term boys, but boys are not really age descriptive. They could have been anywhere from 12 to 19. And it also explains that there was 42 of them that the bears mauled. So this was a group. This was like a gang that's following this nigga. Like, you know, of course he was scared. Of course he would call on God if a group of people started harassing you. You know, it could have turned deadly. Well, it did for the boys, but you know what? That's what you get for talking shit, I guess. But yeah, if a group of 17-year-olds were following you and harassing you in a new, like, a neighborhood or area, you would be scared too. You would call the cops, and if, you know, if something goes wrong and one of the boys die, I bet you wouldn't feel bad, would you? But yeah, I'm just going to skip this. Everybody knows this story.
Yeah. Balaam's donkey. The story of Balaam's donkey begins when the Israelites approach the kingdom of Moab, which gets King Balak worried. So Balak recruits a diviner called Balaam to go and curse the Israelites. Balaam sets off towards the Israelite encampment when an angel appears in his way. Except Balaam doesn't see the angel, only his donkey does. The evangelist's donkey pulls off the road and Balaam gets angry and hits her. Twice more, Balaam tries to carry on, but his donkey just stops and lies down, so Balaam hits her again and again. To help the donkey out, God gives her the ability to speak, presumably in Eddie Murphy's voice. She asks Balaam why he keeps hitting her, and instead of being shocked by the talking donkey, he responds, "I just wish I had a sword so I could kill you." The two argue until God opens Balaam's eyes and he sees the angel, who tells him he would have killed Balaam if the donkey hadn't stopped. The angel sends Balaam back and he never hits his donkey again, although it doesn't mention whether she can still talk.
Alright, so Dark Matter 2525 made a video about this story, and I'm probably going to react to that video, so I can't really say much about this story other than this story is very widely known, like, because of its bizarreness. So I don't know why it's on this list. I mean, how come this list is heavily biased towards, like, the Old Testament? How come it doesn't focus equally on the new and the old? You know, stuff like that. Like, yeah, just wanted to say that, but hey.
Number 2. Quail from the Lord. Moses' exodus of the Israelites from Egypt is well documented in modern media, but what's less widely broadcast is the 40-year journey that followed. This section covers things like the logistics of feeding millions of Israelites, and Moses getting a touch of buyer's remorse. Subsisting on a diet of resin-like food called manna, the Israelites start begging God for meat. Moses laments having to babysit millions of people and asks God to help him or kill him. When the Israelites get so hungry, they actually start talking about how great the catering was when you were a slave. God rightly feels a bit unappreciated and sends them meat. Lots of meat. So much, in fact, that they'll be eating it until it comes out their nostrils and they loathe it. They wake up to find themselves 36 inches deep in quail for a day's walk in either direction. They effectively have to eat their way out, which they don't mind one bit, until the quail meat strikes them with the plague, and the ones that survive get a brutal lesson in gratitude.
Alright, I'm not gonna lie, this one I did not know about. I did not know that God fed people 3 feet of pretty much bird feed. Yeah, good job, guys. Y'all got one.
Number 1. The Sons of Noah. After building an ark big enough to fit 2 of every animal on board,
Yeah, who haven't heard of the Noah story? And by the way, Noah took 7 of every clean animal, however numerous that is, in the ark. That 2x2 thing was a reference to how they were lined up and put in the ark. Also, many people ask how you get millions of animals on an ark, and I just like to say they did it by kind. So what a kind is any animal that's part of the family back then were one. So you know how tigers and lions are like cousins and shit genetically? They had one ancestor along with cats, and you know how dogs and hyenas are like ancestors and shit, like cousins. They had one animal representative on the ark. And also a lot of logistic stuff I don't want to get into because I'm not really a mathematician like that. that's how they did it. But yeah, it was 7, buddy.
And saving all human and animal life from a sin-cleansing flood, Noah naturally wanted to celebrate. He did so by planting a vineyard, which very quickly produces enough wine for Noah to get absolutely bladdered. He does so before passing out in his open tent in nothing but his birthday suit. His son Ham is walking past when he sees his dad lying there and for some reason decides to go and tell his brothers. His brothers then walk into the tent backwards to cover their dad up without looking at his naked body, which aside from being gross is also heavily frowned upon in these times. When Noah wakes up and finds out what Ham's done, he flies off the handle. He curses not Ham but his son Canaan and all his descendants to be slaves. Noah's reasoning for doing this has been debated for millennia now, with some suggesting a far darker subtext, like that Ham castrated Noah while he slept.
Right, there's many speculations on why Ham saw his father naked and started laughing and tried to show his brothers is because Ham found out that Noah had a micro penis after his drunken stoop, and he found that out and he told his brothers, and his brothers wasn't feeling it. He thought it was a little bit gay, so they pretty much covered it up. And the reason why Noah didn't curse Ham is because Ham was already blessed by God along with his 2 other brothers, so he had to go to the next best thing, his grandson. And he decided to curse his grandson, which he can't really do because he's not God and he's not enchanted and shit, so it's kind of irrelevant. But I'm shocked they didn't bring up the whole myth about Ham being the black descendants and shit like that, you know, stuff like that. But yeah, overall, a pretty bad video. This kind of sucks. Anywho, leave a like, enjoy the video, and share it. I'm out.
Because otherwise, it's a bit of an overreaction, and either way, it's pretty harsh to Canaan.